Hey everybody, it's Eric.
It's Tim.
Glenda?
We are D&D Miniature and Board Games. We just got done playing several games of Survive Space Attack by Stronghold Games. If you want to hear what we thought about it, stay tuned. So, Survive Space Attack.
Survive! We survive!
Some of us did. So, if you're not used to the way we score on 5 categories. We score on a 1 to 5 basis. 1 being horrible, 5 being outstanding, 3 being just average. Not good, not bad, not average. Just average. Not average.
Not average.
Not average.
No, it's average, but it's not average.
So we score on graphics and artwork, components, rulebook, replayability, and overall fun.
Fun.
So graphics and artwork, I gave a 4.
3?
4 as well.
So I thought it did what it needed to do. It wasn't anything spectacular for the type of game.
I call it basic.
Wow. She said basic.
Basic, really? You know.
I just, for the graphics and artwork, for what we needed to see, it was easy to discern. You could tell the difference in things. Board was very defined, no guessing on where borders are, stuff like that. So, I thought it was a little above average, yeah.
So components, I gave components a 4.
Gave it a 3.
I gave components a 5.
Wow, we are all different.
So the reason I gave components a 4, I like the difference in thickness of the tiles for the game, because you do have to pick them out in a certain order, and they have different heights, where the last ones you pick are the tallest ones. It has a nice insert in the border, in the box, which I really like. Inserts, keeps everything well organized. The place that I thought they failed in components was there were no quick reference charts for every player. So we had to keep handing the rulebook back and forth to translate which each one of these game tiles said, because they say a different thing, and until you get really, really used to them, you've really got to read what they mean and how you do them.
Yeah, it's not something you're going to memorize right off the rip.
Yeah, but it has everything on the components, though. So it has everything you need. And even they took their time to, it's not just looks like a pin. But for me, it's an average component. It's whatever it needs for the game to be played. But it didn't really stand out on me as far as, giving it more than 3. But it is good.
I didn't really take the quick reference into the component aspect. I placed that in rulebook. But the
Fighters?
Just in general, these things, for all the stuff, I like them. Most of the material's wood.
Yes.
I think it's wood. And then
We're still not going to cut one open to find out.
your little astronauts are they're plastic. I just thought that for this type of game, I thought they definitely went a little above and beyond what something like this would other games like this would normally have. I mean, I think they did a really good job.
And you know what? Let me add to that. This one. That on the components, I don't know if it's in the components, but that gives it you don't know who made it and who has the higher number.
Yeah.
Because it's not something that
mystery.
you will correct.
Mystery to the whole
Keep
thing.
up who's the astronaut who has the more, because they all look the same. So yeah, that's an added bonus.
But you see, I was used to, I had the original Survive back in the 80s.
Okay.
And
Well,
I
that's why
remember that
they look like
the original Survive, you're actually on boats trying to get off an island. And I remember the boats were cardboard pieces. But I do remember like the sharks and the whales and the sea serpents were wood and different colors. Still technically kind of the same game.
Okay.
You add in the fighters,
Is
it
it
makes
just
it a little bit different.
Different scenario, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Rule book. I gave a 4 to the rule book.
I gave it a 4.
I gave it a 3.
Okay.
No judging.
You know, Tim, you had the most to say about this rule book during and in between the games.
Well, reason being is first off, it's hard for me to be able to read a rule book and set up a game. But if I sit down and read a rule book, normally I'll be able to set it up, know how to play, get to it. But this one, I just think they overworded a lot of stuff. And it makes it sound so much more complicated than it actually is. Like, between, Eric's trying to explain, because there's only one set of rules, he's reading rules out, after the setup of how to play. And, I'm just over here going cross-eyed because I don't know what this component is. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I know this is my astronaut, but I don't know what these things are. And not knowing until after you get about a round or so in, it's like all of a sudden it's like, boom, everything falls into place. So for me, it's an average rule book. You can play the game with the rule book, but you're really going to want to go through setup and then walk through using the rule book so you'll understand. Because after playing, then the rule book to me made perfect sense.
It really took playing that first game, and even though I'd read the rule book, it really took playing that first game and going back and rereading things and looking for things for the rule book to really sink in. Tim's right about that. It's not one of the easiest ones that you could just sit down and learn a rule book, throw the rule book to the side and play the game. It's one of those ones that's a lot easier to follow it step by step. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you might get some things wrong in that first couple rounds.
What?
Because there's so much. It's the mechanics. There's so much to.
But I think that one makes it easy as far as going step by step with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second and progressive games after that, you really don't need much of the rule book because it's actually a very easy set of rules.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, you're right. It's wordy.
Yeah,
there's too much of
it. And the other drawback on the rule book was the fact that that's where I put in the rule book for the not having the quick reference.
Correct. Because you can't expect somebody to just figure out every time you pull one of this, you know what to do.
Yeah, some
and
of
then
us
you
got,
don't have, you
and
should have.
Some of us got some memory problems.
And then it's remembering what color can be done when.
Correct, and it's abstract. So,
yeah.
But like why we give it a 4 because from the very beginning, from how to play the game, they actually made it really clear. I think it's kind of real specific, but when it gets to the complication of the the pods and everything else, that makes it confusing after a while. Confusing because you still don't know what you're doing. But then after playing it, then you get used to it. So yeah, 4. Maybe 4.
So replayability, I give a 5.
5.
4.
Well, for me, I found because of the way it sets up, it's a randomized out of the tiles for the board, and there is a lot of difference in all the tiles. You never know which ones you're going to pull, and then you've got your dice factor to which alien is going to move, which it's a what is it, a 1/3 chance of which one's going to move.
Because you might want one.
And the other one, yeah.
And you don't get it.
And then, even in the end, you've got the 4 last tiles. Is it 4? Yeah, 4 last tiles with the turrets on them. 3 of which are black holes, and the last one is the reactor explosion.
Yeah.
Which is really funny, because every time we played, the very last tile we pulled was the reactor. We
Yep.
always pulled all the black holes before the reactor. But yeah, that's why I gave it a 5, because I think it's got, on top of just the basic game, you can flip it over, it's got different setups. So it's got enough variety that this has a pretty high replayability. Glenda?
Yeah, and like you said, you'll never know where this particular game is going to go, who's going to win, and, how it's going to turn out. You have all these sets of plans, but, there's the dice, there's, the aliens, and who knows. So I gave it a 5.
And the only reason that I gave it a 4 versus a 5 is it can get frustrating.
As far as you playing it.
So what you're saying is replayability, as in you don't know if you want to play it again?
Well, not to that degree, but replayability as in I would love to play round after round, but at some point in one of those games I'm going to want to come across and choke somebody.
That's why you were on the other side of the table from us. We know you're the violent.
And I mean, it's not a knock. I mean, it's still above average, for replayability. But yeah, I just see that it becoming kind of a, somebody gets a little butthurt.
Yes, we know.
Oh, your friends are gonna find that the shield is very active.
We formed an alliance today. A little bit of alliance, so we did that today, kinda. But at the end, Tim won, so...
Yeah, I know. It was everything to keep my people from making it anywhere.
The blue
I figured
people.
it out.
So...
I know that the greens weren't allowed to even make it off the board.
Because I forgot I'm the blue.
Well,
yes.
Go back and watch any other playthrough where it's it's not cooperative, and notice who ends up murdering the most of the other people on the board.
And it's really no mercy.
And he's
no
like, what?
Mercy.
It's just part of the game. It's just
Hey,
no mercy.
Strike first, strike hard, no mercy, sir.
Yeah, we know that. Where that came from.
Cobra Kai, Cobra Kai, Cobra Kai, Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai. Okay.
So overall fun. I gave it a 4.
I gave it a 4.
Same here.
It's a fun game, but like Tim stated, it can be frustrating and it can bog down a little bit because you don't have that quick reference guide. So you're handing the rulebook back and forth to each other because you're trying to make sure what the tokens mean. And if you can't remember what color the tokens could run in what spot, it'll bog that game down.
Or in some instances, if you can't tell the color of the alien,
that makes a difference.
To put out, you got to keep swapping.
One time.
Back and forth.
One time.
Colorblind, I guess. But we gave it all 4. Actually, this is actually fun.
Hey, I will never say that I've done good with colors. You remember the playthrough for Black Plague? Back with Don and Tiffany, where I kept trying to move your character, so leave me alone.
Not just that, some other games too.
It's every game.
Yeah,
he does that in just about every game, yeah.
Every game.
But this is a fun
maybe I am colorblind,
game,
I just don't know it.
Quit the colorblind. It is a fun game. We all gave it a 4.
It's not true if I don't admit it.
They're still on the color, guys, but yep, it's a fun game.
I mean, I just...
It's frustrating.
Yeah, that's once again, that's the only reason it got a 4 versus a 5.
And
is that this can evoke a wee bit of emotion.
You wanna,
I think though that had it had a quick reference sheet for every player, it would have been a little different.
I don't know if that would have taken away from the frustration, because the frustration comes from the randomization of the game.
Correct.
It comes from not knowing what your opponent's plans are going to be.
And destroy your plan.
And, once again, that little twinge of anxiety creeps up on you. And you sit there and you're like, I need to get somebody to the jump. And, you're like, so close. And all of a sudden it's like, waka, 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 waka.
Yeah.
So,
the ship
take out the,
is gone.
That
Yeah.
1 point right there, that frustration.
Yeah,
but,
that's the only reason.
but this is a game for people like us that we don't take it out on each other. You know, after the game, we're still friends.
The hell are you talking about? It takes 7 days before I want to see y'all again.
And apparently, Jason and John, it's
like
taking even
forever.
longer.
Weeks.
Overall score. Overall score, if you guys haven't figured it out already just by how the scores pretty much ran in sync somewhat, 4.0.
Yay.
Survive Space Attack Stronghold Games, 4.0 out of 5.
It's a fun game, folks.
It actually is.
Did you know, now I'm kind of looking at wanting the expansions.
I would play.
Because, you know, they have they have 2 expansions for this. One is a 5 to 6 player mini expansion. And another one is called The Crew Strikes Back.
Nice. We get to fight the aliens.
Kind of looks like you do a little bit. I don't know.
That's what I'm talking about.
Kind of interested in what the 5 to 6 player mini expansion does.
Now that sounds pretty brutal. I like brutal.
Well, we played with 3. I would really like to play this again with at least 4.
The most is what?
4.
4, but if you get the expansion, you go up to 5 to 6.
Okay. I see it.
It's a good game. 4-0 is a
4-0?
it's a damn good score.
That is solid 4.
My only suggestion is if you buy the game, you're going to sit down and play it, go to Kinko's or your own printer and this back page, print out 4 copies, 1 for each player. It's a quick reference, but there's only this one on the back of the rule book. And then every player gets one, and they can be reading it all the time while they're playing.
And just to throw you another hint, if you're going to do it at home, you need to make color copies. If not, you need to make sure you get the colors. Kind of highlight which ones is which, because it's color coordinated.
You'll need it because
Yeah.
that tells you when to use it.
Which is yet another reason why the components were freaking awesome.
As always, everybody, support your local gaming. We support
I said it the first time.
Discover Games.
Fayetteville, Georgia.
Which is where Eric bought this,
It's Discover Games.
in Fayetteville, Georgia.
Next to Firehouse Subs.
In Fayetteville, Georgia.
By Mike.
In
Fayetteville,
Fayetteville, Georgia.
Game on, everybody.
Game on, folks.
Game on.